how did this idea of hindhuthwa first begin? You know, early on in the 17th century and earlier, the subordinate caste Dalits were converting to Christianity and to Islam in their millions, There was no problem, nobody minded that. But at the turn of the century, when the idea of an empire began to be replaced by the idea of a nation state, when it was not enough to ride a horse into Delhi and say, now I'm the Emperor of India, but the politics of representation began, there began a huge anxiety about numbers. You know, at that point, the upper castes, Hindus, decided, the privileged caste, let me say, they decided that it would be terrible if the 40 million Dalits now were going to continue to convert. And that's when the whole upper caste Hindu reformist movement started, of which Gandhi was a legatee. And that, you know, so if you read their texts, Hindus never referred to themselves as Hindu. Earlier, they used to only refer to themselves as their caste name. But then Hindu became not a religious but a political identity. They started to talk about the Hindu nation, the Hindu race, and that's how Hindhuthwa started. Today, you have the secular liberals and the debate between them and the Hindhuthwa brigade about how Islam came to India. And at that point, the seculars will say, oh, you're exaggerating the fact that, you know, there was so much vandalism and they broke temples. And the Hindhuthwa will say, no, the Islamists came and they broke all our temples and they destroyed our culture. But you have someone like Jyotiba Phule, one of the earliest modern anti-caste intellectuals, who said, yes, they broke the temples, but thank God they broke the temples. They invited us into their dining rooms. There was that whole breaking of the caste system which people celebrated. So even our contemporary debates are so weak when you don't put justice at the core of things. Dr. Jnaneshwaran introduced me, when he introduced me, he said, you know, she has always stood with the marginalized. You know, I actually have a different view of myself, which is that I actually think it's an awful thing when I feel when people sometimes introduce me as a writer who is the voice of the voiceless. I don't believe there's anything like the voiceless. There is only the deliberately silenced. Nobody is voiceless, you know, and I don't have to represent anybody but myself. I think what we need to ask ourselves is, what kind of people are we? Are we a people who places justice at the center of our society? Or are we a people who enjoys the idea of institutionalizing injustice? Are we a people who are so sick that we actually believe that there are some people who deserve more entitlement than others? Because if we are that kind of people, we're a very, very sick people. And once you put justice at the core of how you think, then the stories that you tell are different. Today, people talk a lot